All right, guys, welcome back to episode 134 of Bleav in Rams. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is my host, Cameron Lynch, former Rams linebacker, and we're here to get you prepared for another Rams game. Yes, that's right. I know it was upsetting. They lost to Tampa Bay. Well, we got to move on, right? You already talked about the 24-hour rule. I mean, you gotta move on. And that's what we intend to do. Before we can do that, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, review, rate, all of that jazz. Really does help us out. Be sure to follow Cam at Cameron Lynch 50. Be sure to follow me at JK Bogan on Twitter. Cam is also on Instagram. I'm on Instagram as well, so be sure to check us out there. I have an ad read, and then we'll get into it. betonline.ag, our friends over there. Basketball is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Head on over to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code Bleav to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Cam, the game starts. We're starting now. It is time. Yeah. We are back here. I'm excited to get ready for a preview. It is a preview show. That means we're not coming to you after a loss. We're getting you ready for a hopeful win. And I'm kind of pumped because it's gut check time. This is now or never. I mean, I will be honest with you, Cam. This is probably it. If the Rams lose this game, this might be the season. You would be in last place. It would not be ideal. However, we start, as always now, with a burning question. And Cam, I'm going to ask you, if Matthew Stafford does not suit up on Sunday, which it's looking like he's not, who are you starting at quarterback? John Wolford or Bryce Perkins? I think the Rams are going to go with Wolford, but I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I'm going John Wolford. You know, I played him when he was at Wake Forest. I was at Syracuse, and so I know he can handle the pressure there, right? And I know also he beat the Arizona Cardinals last year to get to the playoffs, right? 18-7, he got that W. So I think he's the guy. I think the Rams community the Rams community is ready for him. They know what he can. They know what he can do. On the football field. I know what he can do. What he can do on the football field just from playing him myself. So I'm looking forward to him taking over the helm. I think the offense will become a little bit more balanced with him there, right? A little bit more run game. Cooper Kupp's going to get some passes, but not all the passes, right? I think we'll see a little bit more Allen Robinson getting the rock. We'll see a little bit more distribution amongst everyone. So I'm looking forward to this Sunday.
I'm with you, and let me be honest here, and I'm not very biased. I'm very unbiased in this sense because I got to tell you right now, Bryce Perkins is a friend of the channel and my other podcast, Downtown Rams. He's been on twice. So, I have allegiance to him, but it's nothing against Bryce. It's the fact, look, this team is still in it. They're 3-5. This isn't let's play Lance McCutcheon because he had a few good preseason games against, third stringers. This team has a chance to still make the playoffs. It's not over. And it's not to say Bryce couldn't win this game, because I believe he could. But it's the fact that you don't want to put him in that, do or die scenario here where this is a must win game. Ideally, you want Matthew Stafford under center because, well, obviously. But I mean, as you know, as a player, I mean, it's person first. And that's what Sean McVay was trying to say. And I would actually be kind of pissed off if Stafford played, because I just don't feel like it's not the right move. If he's in the concussion protocol and still hasn't practiced, he shouldn't pass concussion protocol. He just shouldn't.
We don't want a round two with the Dolphins. We don't want a round two of that.
Exactly. And it's funny that you bring that up, because I was just saying on my live stream the other day, I was like, look, before Tua, I think Stafford plays on Sunday. But the way the league is right now, there's no way the Rams would get away with that. I think they'd get fined picks if they played Stafford. So I'm trying to avoid that. But even furthermore, I'm with Kelly Stafford. Like, she's upset, she's pissed, she's angry, she's sad, she's disheartened. I get it. I mean, watching a loved one go through a concussion, I actually watched my mom deal with one after her car accident. So I know how that somewhat feels. Obviously different, but it's a serious thing. And anything that has to do with the brain, you just don't mess with. So looking at this, talking more football, John Wolford makes the most sense. First off, he played in one regular season game and won it. It was a must-win also, by the way. Even more must-win before, because we did not know if the Bears or Packers were going to win, and that game ended up mattering in the end. But in 2020, week 17, Jared Goff misses the game due to, a dislocated thumb or whatever, broken thumb. And he comes in, he steps in, he throws an interception on the first play of the game or first drive of the game. And then after that, he settled down. I mean, he was able to, make plays with his legs. He threw a really nice fade to, the corner to, Robert Woods. He got Josh Reynolds involved. He got, Van Jefferson involved, Tyler Higbee. He hit a nice, a wheel route to the running back Cam Akers down the left sideline. So I saw a guy that, really diversified his passing. He didn't just throw to one guy. He also didn't play with Cooper Kupp either. People forget about that. Right. So, I think this is somebody here who has the chance to kind of stabilize this offense. I think this, believe it or not, this is a blessing in disguise for the LA Rams. Because the offense needed this. It has nothing to do with Stafford. I just think, quite simply, if Sean McVay is going to continue to call plays and not pass the sticks, as we talked about, then I think this helps him kind of get him in the frame of mind. Like, look, I like John. I trust John. But I'm not going to have John throw 50 times. We're going to lose any game where he throws 50 times. So I'm going to balance this out. I'm going to run with Henderson. I'm going to run with Kyron Williams, who's going to be back this week. We got Shelton, Coleman Shelton back. Brian Allen's there. Things are turning a corner here if the Rams can get the run game going, be more of a balanced offense, and just be a better, I guess better play calling. Just have better play calling, and I think this team can win games. And I think they're going to win this ball game, and I trust John Wolford. So the burning question, you and I both have John Wolford, but at the same time, Cam, I want to see Bryce Perkins used as Taysom Hill in this one.
Tricky. Yeah, I mean, forcing the defensive coordinator to think differently is going to be really important, right? So adding him into the mix would be dynamic. And then another thing too, I like going on to the defensive side, Jake. I love doing that. One thing I watched the previous game with the Cardinals. And Kyler Murray had some trouble with the snaps. I mean, the snaps are flying over his head, fumbles. I mean, and I know we talked about it last week. For the Rams to be successful, the Rams defense needs to force turnovers and get the football. I know our guy, big play, Bobby Wagner, jumped the line of scrimmage and blocked that field goal last week against the Buccaneers. And so I can see that happening a lot against the Cardinals, right? Where there's a missed snap or Kyler Murray, he's running around, scrambling, holding that ball a little loose, and the Rams defense can come up with it. And I think that's going to be key because D-Hop is back for the Cardinals. So the Rams going to have to do a good job of shutting him down with Jalen Ramsey, who Jalen Ramsey said that's one of his toughest competitors. But getting control of that football is going to be big for the Rams defense. And I know on the Cardinals side, you got Budda Baker. I know they're on Hard Knocks, and the coach is talking about everyone's goal for this game should be to play as hard as Budda Baker. So I know he's going to be a guy flying around in that Cardinals defense. But going back to the Rams defense, it's going to be important for those guys to get some turnovers and score some points for the offense and help out the new quarterback that's stepping in there.
No, I absolutely agree with you. It seems a little unfair to ask more out of the defense at this point, but unfortunately, if you want to win games, you're going to need turnovers. You might need some touchdowns. And funny that you should mention that. The last time the Rams played the Cardinals with John Wolford under center, the Rams got a touchdown. It was Troy Hill, your guy.
Yeah, my guy.
Troy Hill took one back and helped them out. Troy Hill is somebody that I think is yet to really explode onto the scene this year, and I think it's coming. I mean, we saw the interception against Josh Allen. He gets hurt. I feel like he's back in game mode now. Like I think we'll see him more comfortable, maybe jump a route or two. Could be in this game. Now, this is the same defense that went up against this offense with Marquise Brown. Now Brown is out. He had 140 yards on 14 catches, and I would call that a win because that was the game plan. The Rams will limit you to those 8-yard catches or 10-yard catches as long as you're not beating us over the top, right? And it worked because the Rams defense was on the field for 81 plays, Cam, in week 3, and they did not allow a single touchdown.
Yeah, so big time.
I don't know if they're going to do that same approach this time around. They're healthier because it's also worth noting week 3, they played 3 of their top 4 cornerbacks were out. They took Darion Kendrick, who's starting now. They took him off not the practice squad, but they took him off the inactive list. Like, he was healthy scratch the first 2 games of the year. And then the third game, now he's starting. So it was a huge moment there. Or so we thought. But, looking at it, the Rams defense is 13th in the league in DVOA. And I would argue they're better than the DVOA rating. I think they've been everything that you could ask for as far as what they're doing, keeping teams under 20, which is the magic number we talked about. Raheem Morris has done a really nice job. I do think that they do have some issues with tackling. We've talked about that. Some issues in the back end of the secondary. All of a sudden, I went into the season feeling very confident in the safeties, and now I'm not. Jordan Fuller's out. Nick Scott's not playing his best football. Taylor Rapp definitely is not playing his best football. And they just cut Terrell Burgess, who was a guy I really liked. We talked about it very briefly on the last episode. So now it's basically Scott, Rapp. You'd probably have Jalen Ramsey in the mix there, playing a little safety. You have some other corners that might be able to do that. But in addition to that, you also have Russ Yeast, who is the rookie. And I feel like we might start to see more of him because I just don't think the safeties have been playing up to par. Because here's the thing. When the scheme works perfectly, you don't have to really worry about the safeties. But when teams try anyway to go deep down the field, that's when the safeties are challenged. And we saw that towards, the end of the game against Tampa. It wasn't the greatest coverage by Rapp, wasn't the greatest coverage by Nick Scott. They are missing tackles. So that's my concern there. The pass rush has gotten a little bit better. I think really whatever they do it the right way against Kyler Murray. They haven't really let him beat them. Well, they haven't let him beat him only once. Sean McVay's team is 11-1 against Arizona, and only once last year, week 4 against Arizona at SoFi. We are in SoFi this time, but at SoFi, Kyler Murray looked like the MVP. And I think since then, the Rams have kind of taken a step back and been like, no, we're not going to allow him to just run all over the place and dictate the game. We're going to dictate the game for him and be like, hey, you better make that short throw right there because that's all we're going to give you. We're not giving you over the top stuff. We're not going to let you beat us over the top. Now, to be fair, Cam, they did not have DeAndre Hopkins last night. And he clearly has not lost a step.
No, he hasn't. And you spoke about that. Those are sometimes when it comes to quarterbacks that can run, a defensive coordinator's worst nightmare. And so having a spy on him is going to be extremely important, especially up front, letting the defensive lineman know, hey, we need to make sure we cage him and keep him inside the pocket rather than scrambling because that's where he's the most dangerous. And then also the Cardinals have Zach Ertz. And as you know, he's a Pro Bowl tight end. He's a all-pro tight end. He can catch the ball anywhere pretty much. So, last week, against the 49ers, George Kittle had his way with the Rams. 2 weeks ago, had his way with the Rams. And so catching the ball over the middle, having some routes that, go behind the linebackers. And that's going to be important for the Rams to make sure that they spy Kyler Murray. They keep an eye on Zach Ertz. And then also, too, when it comes to the Cardinals running game, James Conner, that's going to cause some problems as well. And then let's not forget they have D-Hop out there. And so the safeties are going to be going back to your point, the safeties are going to be very busy this game, keeping an eye on Zach Ertz, trying to tackle James Conner, and then Jalen Ramsey hopefully can lock down the DeAndre Hopkins, who's probably one of the best receivers in the league, maybe top 5 there. So yeah, the Rams defense has their work cut out for them. But one thing I do know that the Rams have is Aaron Donald, right? And I know one of his 4 to 5 sacks on the season was on Kyler Murray. So I have a good feeling about this game here. And like you said, it's the bottom of the bottom. Both team of the division. So the Rams have to win this game. The Cardinals have to win this game. So everyone's going to be on their P's and Q's. And like I said, the Hard Knocks, I mean, they seem like they're juiced up, ready to go for the Cardinals. So the Rams are going to have to buckle up. 24-hour rules in effect from the Buccaneers game. So wipe that game clean, right? You played the GOAT, Brady. He came back and won the game. Wipe that clean and prepare for the Cardinals, because it's a divisional game. As we always say, Jake, it always counts as 2. Our coaches always tell us the divisional games always count as 2. And so it's going to be a big one.
I mean, this is essentially wiping Arizona off the map. If you win this game, they now have 7 losses. I mean, the margin for error when you're 3-7 is ridiculous. I mean, you're done. Let's be honest here. You're probably done. Arizona, I think, has another game against Seattle, another game against the 49ers. I don't like their chances at all.
Is it a Hard Knocks thing? Jake, do you think it's a Hard Knocks thing? Because I've been on Hard Knocks twice, and for the Buccaneers and for the Rams, and it didn't go well. I know Hard Knocks is covering the season for the Cardinals in season, and I don't know if it's like a Hard Knocks curse. They always talk about it, but they're not doing too well, compared to their previous year. So they might be done, like you said.
And they're one of those teams because they, like you mentioned, the Rams were on Hard Knocks. They're another team where the Rams and Cardinals were both on Hard Knocks and All or Nothing. So that's kind of Keith Koster, I think, does both of them, produces both of them. He actually came on our show a few years back. But I'll say this. I think that gives them too much credit saying it is a Hard Knocks curse. I don't think that they were that great coming into this year. And I think last year was the product of not being a great football team. They got to play a really, really easy schedule, And I do feel like it's one of those things where you watch the Cardinals every year. They start off kind of decent, and then they tail off towards the end. And I mean, Kyler Murray breaks down towards the end of the year. I mean, I really loved the guy coming out of college, but that was my biggest concern is like, will his body withstand the physicality of the NFL and playing at that speed, that level? I mean, sure enough, I don't think we mentioned it. He's limited in practice with a hamstring injury. I feel like every time the Rams play him now, he's limited and he can't run and he can't do what he did in week 4 last year. And I just, that's not a good sign this early on in his career. So it's sad, but I mean, that's the first thing. The second thing is Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, going back to Texas Tech, he struggles towards the end. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. So you could be, 6-0, 7-0 like Arizona. If you're getting bounced 34-11 in the wild card game, that's a failure. I mean, you failed. That's what that is. So that was what they did last year. They went out and got J.J. Watt, A.J. Green. I could see what they were trying to do last year. It didn't work like they wanted it to or like they expected it to. And then this year just has been an absolute disaster. I mean, they went out and they traded for Robbie Anderson. The Rams saw him last time, the Panthers game, where he's screaming at his coach, literally got kicked off the sideline by Steve Wilkes. There's
Robbie struggled last game too. Robbie had a couple drop passes, a couple flags in the end zone, so he's struggling. And I'm sure the Rams are going to make sure he struggles a little bit more, right? Applying a little bit more pressure. But I do know that as an athlete, whenever you have a rough game prior, that the next game you're looking for your vengeance or your way back. So and also to kind of jump in, you mentioned a J.J. Watt. Just watching the Cardinals' most recent game. The defensive line, they were getting after it, right? The Cardinals defensive line is going to apply some pressure to the Rams. I know the Rams are, Matthew Stafford might not be playing. So whoever's up next, right? We have our prediction, but whoever's up next, just best believe that the Cardinals defensive line, they're going to have their ears pinned back. They're going to be coming after the Rams offensive line as well, who had some struggles in the previous game. So I think that's something to look out for this upcoming game for sure.
I agree with you. I think they got to be very careful as well because the Cardinals, if they blitz, I went back and watched Wolford's game against them. He killed them, man. When they blitzed him and they were playing man coverage, he's now got 30 yards of free grass to run. It's a give and a take. Like, yeah, it's great. If you can play man coverage consistently and you can get after the quarterback, great. But if the quarterback can get out of that pocket, now you just sent 2 guys. That was a 4-man rush that you sent 2 to blitz. Now you got 6 guys that are out of this play. Just completely out of it. And you have 5 guys remaining and they're all spread out all over the, you know what I mean? That's just free real estate essentially. So that's one thing they definitely have to worry about, in doing that. Now, one thing I'll say about the offense, with Wolford is that Wolford, we give a lot of credit to his legs, but some of the throws he made in his last start against the Cardinals, were really impressive. I mean, I'll be honest, he can throw with touch. I know people look back and they're like, man, he came in and he threw an interception against the Giants. I was at the game. I know. I was so pissed because I was like, man, this guy never gets an opportunity. They haven't run the ball. He's in no passing rhythm whatsoever. Thing that people don't understand is Wolford is a rhythm passer. And who definitely knows that? The guy on the other sideline, Gregory Dortch, who he used to throw to. And, fun. But, for real, though, I mean, he is a rhythm passer. And when you have a backup come in to just hand the ball off when you're blowing a team out, there's no stakes in the game. And then you're like, yeah, let's have you go back to pass. And the other team's like, are they really throwing on 1st and 10 up by 30? I'm going to kill this guy. And they go pin their ears back. I mean, you're a defensive player, so I mean, you get all you get annoyed, right? You're like, really? They're trying to, so the whole running up the score thing. So now John Wolford is dealing with a 3rd down rush essentially on 1st down. And, he throws an interception. Now that's the people that disagree with him starting keep bringing up. And I'm like, that's not the same thing, okay? If he starts, it's the same thing with PJ Walker. PJ Walker's a different player. When he comes in late into a game and has to take over, it actually works for him. It doesn't work for everybody. But when he starts a game, and believe it or not, going through the preparation, you think he'd be better. But it's not necessarily the case because baseball with how there's certain pitchers that can get through the first round of batters, but they can't get past the 2nd or the 3rd. That means they're not a starter and they go to the bullpen. In football, there are quarterbacks that can come in on a dime like a backup, but when they are needed to prepare as the backup and be the starter for the week, that's when they're not. And I would point to Taysom Hill. Because this is a guy he just shows up game time. I would imagine he probably doesn't practice very well because he doesn't start, but he shows up game time and he makes the throws. But if you asked him to prepare as a starter, we've seen him. He's not a great starting quarterback. He's not. It's why he's not starting over Andy Dalton. So I feel like Wolford is not PJ Walker. This is a guy that needs a full week of preparation. And keep this in mind, Cam, and anybody who, if anybody's doubting him, this guy was working with all these guys this offseason. When Stafford had the whole elbow thing, who do you think was getting the first team reps? It was Wolford.
Right.
And Wolford is the guy that they use as the, he simulates a Kyler Murray, right? He works for the scout team.
Yeah.
That's why they love him. So he can run the scout team. But now, he's had a lot of experience, and him and Van Jefferson have a very good rapport because they worked with each other a lot before he became a starter. That is a guy to look out for in this game because Van is really looking to bounce back from what he probably thinks was a huge letdown of a game. He's still getting his feet, under him and everything.
Yeah, him and Robbie Anderson kind of have the same type of game where you're dropping a wide open passes. It's like, we need to bounce back, this upcoming game. Yeah.
It's uncanny for Van the drops he had, because the thing that I always loved about him coming out of Ole Miss and Florida, this guy frames the ball well. Like he doesn't have these issues with like the snatch or like letting it go into his chest. Like the guy is a natural hands catcher, and that's about as simple as I can make that. And the way he framed the ball, that 20-yard play that he dropped against the Bucks, I just think that was him being rusty. I feel like this week he comes back, he'll probably be in a better better shape. It'll be cool to see Wolford with Henderson. He didn't get a chance to play with him last time. It was just Akers. And Akers wasn't bad in that game either. He had the fumble at the goal line, but he was pretty solid.
And I want to go back to your point about the backup quarterbacks and having rapport with the receivers, right? Because a lot of times the receivers, they want to get some catches in before practice or maybe after practice, and they don't always go to the starting quarterback. Matthew Stafford or your Tom Brady's like, hey, throw me 100 footballs. They go to the backup. So Wolford and Jefferson probably have some type of rapport that maybe Matthew Stafford doesn't have. I mean, that may be Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. I'll take that back. Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, they have an excellent rapport, right?
Oh,
But you go to your Allen Robinsons, you go to your Jeffersons, and maybe, the amount of throws that Wolford has those guys outside of a practice, is probably more than your Matthew Stafford. So like you said, you get the ball going with the running game going with Henderson, the offensive line gets some push going with that line of scrimmage, right? That's going to be extremely important. And then Wolford gets the ball out to some of his favorites that he's worked with in the offseason or before or after practices. That's going to be huge. And like you said, him running scout team, he's already getting a lot of these reps in. He knows what's going on. And so, as we talk through this podcast a little bit, I have a little bit more confidence in Wolford than I did when we started. And I think Rams fans should too as well.
I agree. And I mean, I don't think we're setting up our listeners for a letdown either. Like, it's not like we're saying Wolford's going to come in and throw 3 touchdowns and go for 375 and 0. That's not his game. That's not his game. He's going to be a guy that gets probably 150 passing yards, which you'll take, maybe a touchdown, maybe an interception. I'm not ruling that out, right?
Yeah.
But he runs for 70, right? So he runs for 70, and then he helps the ground game with, Kyron and Darryl and maybe even Cam. Like, I think that's the type of game where we're probably looking at like a 24-13 ball game. That's probably what we're looking at. And the Rams don't care, because the days of the style points are over. Yeah. I don't think they really ever existed. I mean, it's not college football. And I feel like Sean McVay doesn't really go for style points. Like, he doesn't run up the score like other, coaches tend to do. But in this game especially, it's just survive and advance. Treat this like it's the NCAA tournament. You lose and you're done, right? Survive and advance. You got the Saints next week. You got 2 winnable games to get back to 500. I mean, you got to climb out of this pit that you put yourself in. Okay. Once you get out of it, then we can start talking about the playoffs. But right now, the playoffs are imaginary. It doesn't matter that you won the Super Bowl this calendar year. The time is now. They got to get things going. There is no excuse, though. If Sean McVay does not run the ball this week, so help me God, Cam, because I will tell you right now, okay, they are in way too many one possession, close games, leading late in the game to not run the ball. I mean, when you're leading the game, you're up in a 1 possession or 2 possession game. Why are you throwing deep down the field still? Like, why aren't you trying to run the ball late in the 4th quarter? You dictate the clock.
Yeah.
Run the ball. I mean, so I know it sounds simple, and it's not always as simple as that. I got to give a shout actually to Jordan Rodriguez, who had a great explanation for why Bobby Evans was playing. And I thought this was great. The terminology, they trusted him knowing the terminology more than Ode Abushi. And it goes further than this, Cam, because they knew they were going to be on a silent count. So they felt like he gave them the best opportunity. That is the best explanation I've heard, because there's no other explanation to make any sort of sense as to why he started.
That means trust. That's really just trust. They trusted that he knew the plays. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't know the plays, then you're going to be at a detriment more than you are at a success. So that makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, no, when I read that, I was like, okay. I mean, I would have pulled him when I realized in the second quarter, the third quarter, it wasn't working, but that's just me. We're moving on again. We're not talking about the Bucks game. So we're going to wrap this thing up. We got X Factor's final score prediction, and then that's a podcast. So X Factors, Cam, you got 2 Rams offense and defensive and the Cardinals offense and defensive. Who are your 2 on the Rams and who are your 2 on the Cardinals?
So if I go the Rams, like I said, I'm a creature of habit. I'm gonna go Troy Hill. I think I want him to have that breakout game. Yeah, he was tackling really well last game, and I think like you said, he's getting his feet underneath him. And then I'm going to also go on the offensive side, Van Jefferson. He dropped some of those footballs, and so I think this game he's gonna start catching them, and it's going to be a lot better game for him. And then I think too just. And I'll wait for you to hear yours before I jump into the Cardinal side.
Yeah, so I think with the Rams, the defense, I could go multiple areas here. I might just stick with Leonard Floyd.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like he's starting to kind of get back to what we expect from Leonard Floyd, and I'm expecting him to have a good game. He does a really nice job, in kind of that. I'm totally blanking on what I was trying to say, but he plays more of like the contain. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He contains Murray well. Like he has great footwork in doing so. I feel like he's going to come away with the sack, and his pressure is going to help out the defense. I love the Troy Hill pick. And then the offense, the X factor, I mean, it's kind of a straight shooter here, but I'm just going to say Darrell Henderson. I mean, I think to me, this is somebody that Sean McVay kind of teased could get more playing time, could get more carries because he's getting plenty of playing time, just not a lot of carries. If he gets like 20 carries in this game, I just don't know. Like, people are not going to have any idea, because if he can stay healthy and he can carry the ball 20 times a game, he's getting 100 yards at least. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if he were to do that, then it opens up the confidence for Sean McVay now. He sees it and he's like, all right, maybe, just maybe, we have our running back. And then maybe the Rams look to extend him after the year. That's a whole different story. But the whole point is getting the running game going. And you're not going to win, you got 9 games left. You literally can't lose more than 3. And 3 is not even a guarantee you make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. If you lose 4, you have a losing record. So you can't lose more than 3. Typically speaking, based on the way this season's going, you probably don't want to lose more than 2. This is not a game you can lose. And I honestly don't think you can afford to be in last place at any point in the season. I think it's just a really bad, it's just a bad vibe, it's just like, wow, we're really in last. Like, it's over. It's really hard to dig yourself out of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And, for them to win, they're going to have to stop some of the X factors on the Cardinals. And I'm going to go defensive side. I'm going to go Budda Baker. Like I said, seeing those hard knocks, I mean, the guy is just on fire right now. So Budda Baker will be the X factor for the Cardinals, and the Rams have to watch out for him at every play. And then on the offensive side, Robbie Anderson. He needs to step up, and he knows that. Watching the last game, and I think we talked about it earlier in the podcast, is when players don't do well, they come back for vengeance the next game. And so, similar to Jefferson for the Rams, I think Anderson for the Cardinals is going to step up and be the X factor for the Cardinals because of, like I said, the Zach Ertz, and you got your DeAndre Hopkins and your James Conner. So, the Rams are going to be keyed in on those players, and I think Anderson's going to have a chance to shine. And so that's my X factor for the Cardinals there.
So my X factor on the offense is an easy one for me. You said Robbie Anderson. I'm going to stick to receiver. I'm going to go with Rondale Moore. This is a guy, if they figured out how to use him, would be one of the most lethal weapons in the NFL. I don't care that he's 5'7". I know he squatted like 500, 600 pounds. Like, he's a freak. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the video. It was nuts. Wow. But he is incredible talent. And I think we've been waiting for him to kind of find his stride, or rather them figure out how to use him, the second rounder in 2021. I think this could be a game where you go back, you look at Christian McCaffrey on tape, the way they defended Christian McCaffrey in the passing game, just use him like that. Because you have to defend Robbie Anderson's speed over the top. You have to defend DeAndre Hopkins. You have Ertz, like you just mentioned. And like you have guys like Benjamin and James Conner have also given the Rams some fits in the past. So I think his explosive ability is enough to really break open this game if the Rams struggle to tackle in this one. So he's an X factor for me. And on the defensive side, I'm going to say Ben Niemann, kind of an underrated one, not really getting a lot of talk, former Kansas City Chief. He's taken a bigger role here as a linebacker. They've kind of moved Isaiah Simmons back. He's more of like a nickel now. So he's not necessarily playing the linebacker spot, alongside Zaven Collins. So Ben Niemann, I think, is a guy because if you have a weaker link at linebacker, like we saw that last year, I like Troy Reader, I do, but he was the weaker link of the linebacker room. When you saw Ernest Jones playing the way he was in the Super Bowl, and then you had, Troy Reader and, Traven Hat, it was never really solidified the way it is this year with, obviously you have Ernest Jones and now Bobby Wagner. And Ben Niemann doesn't get enough credit. I think he's played pretty solid this year. I think he's an X factor because if he can play well in the run game and not allow Henderson and Kyron Williams and Cam Akers to get to that second level and help in that support as well as in coverage, then I think Arizona, with the players that they have around him, with, like I mentioned, Simmons, you mentioned Budda Baker earlier, obviously. You talk about Marco Wilson. He had a pick on Stafford last year. He's a good player. Jalen Thompson. I mean, the list goes on. They really have a lot of names on their defense. Really, their offense has been abysmal this year, 30th in DVOA, somehow worse than the Rams offense. So the defense, obviously a lot of names, but we haven't seen the production. And this is, Cam, where we start to get into desperate territory where it's like put up or shut up time. Arizona's staring, it's the crossroads right now, the fork in the road here. It's like maybe playoffs, definitely dead season. It's and if you lose this game, you're going to the definitely dead season, because 3-7, that's the dead zone. You don't come back from that until next year when you get another shot and your slate is wiped clean. So that's what I'll say there. Niemann on the defense and Rondale Moore on the offense. But that leads us to the final portion of this podcast, which everyone obviously, hopefully, does not fast forward to the end of to hear. But the final score prediction, which I'm going to give you the floor on this one because I got to mull it a little bit. I'm thinking, but you let me know what you think.
Yeah, well, I know if Wolford starts, I know the game's not going to be as high scoring. I think you talked about it, maybe one touchdown on his behalf, maybe a defensive touchdown, or maybe one of the backs gets it through Henderson or Akers. So I'm going to go 17-14 Rams. Right, by a field goal there. I think, as you know, when it comes to crunch time play, games are won by three points or less. And so it's going to be a divisional game. It's, the bottom of the barrel. The Rams and the Cardinals are fighting to move themselves up. And like I said, it's sink or swim. And so the sink or swim is going to be decided by 3 points this game. I'm going to go 17-14 Rams.
I'm going to go 24-13 Rams. Their last game was 20-12. It was ugly. It was about what you could imagine. But, I feel like, Wolford is going to get in the end zone, whether it's a pass or a run. I think he's going to get in the end zone. I think he's going to light a little bit of a spark, for this offense. And I know there's going to be overreaction Monday where everyone's like, oh, should they sit Stafford? Absolutely not. But I'm hoping that all of the results that come from this, if they're in a good way, it's like an eye-opening moment for Sean McVay. This is like a gift from the football gods. Not saying a concussion's a gift, but what I'm saying is that Wolford is thrust in there, forces you to run the ball more, forces you to balance your offense more. Diversify your weapons, essentially. I don't know. I think I really do believe that if they win this game and they get the offense somewhat going and more of a balanced focus and running the ball, maybe I'm just it's blind hope, but I'm really I'm confident that it will somewhat rattle Sean McVay enough in a good way to be like, all right, what we were doing was not working. We obviously can't trot out Wolford since Stafford is on a 5-year extension and he's our franchise quarterback, but we can run the ball more. We can throw more than to just Cooper Kupp, and
Allen Robinson.
Hopefully that's what happens. And I think the defense will be able to play off that. So, hopefully Troy Hill comes down with a pick 6. That'd be very nice. The momentum carrying that into the final stretch of the season would definitely not have an issue with that.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to it. The key is balance and diversification. That's the key to this game. So hopefully we can see it. Hopefully we see Henderson running the football, Allen Robinson catching the football, and the defense scoring some touchdowns. That'd be an ideal game for me.
Yes, and a Van Jefferson deep bomb right in front of his dad on the sidelines.
Exactly. And he'll catch it.
Yes, he will. He caught it last year. He'll catch it this year. Yeah. But hey, that is going to do it for us. I think we've prepared you enough for this game. Now go watch it. Just kidding. It's not out yet. But that's going to do it for us. Appreciate you. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Cameron Lynch. And this has been Bleav in Rams. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, all that jazz. And be sure to spread the word that you heard it from Bleav in Rams. Take care, folks, and we'll see you next week.